When my husband and I moved into Maple Ridge Estates, we genuinely believed we'd found a calm, friendly neighborhood where we could finally settle in with our golden retriever, Sunny. She's the type of dog that wins people over instantly, gentle tail wags, a goofy smile, and a permanent desire to cuddle anyone who gives her the slightest attention. Most of our neighbors adored her. Kids would ask to pet her on their way to the bus stop. Joggers would wave as she trotted beside me. And retirees often stopped just to say how sweet she was. Unfortunately, every good story seems to have one antagonist. And ours arrived in the form of Karen Whitmore, self-appointed queen of the HOA. Karen introduced herself the same day we moved in, stomping across her lawn like she was preparing for battle. She barely glanced at us before demanding to know whether Sunny was registered with the HOA Pet Compliance Committee, something we didn't even know existed. Her voice had that tone, sharp, commanding, and dripping with self-importance. She told us she had lived there for 12 years and considered herself the guardian of neighborhood standards. We smiled politely, assuming she was simply overzealous. We were wrong. The first official complaint arrived 3 days later. Noise violation from excessive canine activity. That was her wording. The excessive activity she referred to Sunny's joyful bark when the mail truck pulled up. 1 bark. Maybe 2. The second complaint came the following week, claiming Sunny was a threat to community harmony. The third said our dog appeared larger than allowed by HOA code. Sunny weighed 55 pounds, a standard golden retriever size. Nothing about her was threatening unless you were opposed to being licked. We tried to resolve it peacefully. I knocked on Karen's door and asked if we could talk things out. She glared through the screen like I was a door-to-door scammer. She insisted Sunny was aggressive, citing that one time Sunny sniffed her ankle as she walked past. Your dog lunged, she argued. Sunny had been on a leash. The lunge was a slow wagging walk in her direction. Weeks passed, and the complaints escalated into fines, hundreds of dollars in bogus violations. The HOA board, which Karen practically puppeteered, refused to hear our side. We were told to control our animal or face mandatory removal of the pet from the premises. That was the day I realized Karen wasn't just being dramatic. She wanted Sunny gone. She wanted control. And she expected us to roll over and obey. But she underestimated 2 things, our love for our dog and our willingness to fight back. It all came to a head on an unusually warm Saturday morning when I found a bright orange notice taped to our front door. In bold black letters, it read, "Final warning. Mandatory removal of non-compliant canine. Within 14 days. My hands shook as I read the rest. If we failed to comply, the HOA would pursue legal remedies, including property liens. Over a dog. Over Sunny. I marched straight to the HOA office, which was really just a converted pool supply closet behind the community center. There sat Karen, wearing her signature visor and sipping iced tea like she was lounging at a country club instead of a dim storage room. She didn't even pretend to greet me. She simply folded her arms and said, "You're late. I assumed you were coming to sign the surrender form." I told her we weren't surrendering anything. She smirked and claimed the board had undeniable evidence that Sunny had violated multiple clauses. When I asked to see the evidence, she refused, saying it was confidential. Then she sent me away with a condescending wave of her hand. That moment ignited a spark in me I hadn't felt before. I left shaking with anger, but also with a growing determination. That night, my husband and I sat at the kitchen table. Sunny curled at our feet, unaware of the trouble swirling around her. We talked for hours about our options. We reread the HOA bylaws. We researched state pet protection laws. And the deeper we dug, the more we realized something crucial. The HOA had no legal grounds for any of this. Their weight limit rule was outdated and unenforceable due to a later amendment. Their noise violation claims were baseless without corroboration. And most importantly, they couldn't force the removal of a pet without a court order. We decided enough was enough. We contacted an attorney recommended by a neighbor, who had also suffered Karen's wrath over a rose bush she deemed non-compliant. The attorney listened patiently, then said something that would change everything: "They're bluffing. And if they push this, we can countersue." The next morning, Karen delivered yet another notice. This one claimed Sunny had menaced a resident during a routine walk. The supposed resident: Karen herself. The accusation: Sunny wagged her tail while approaching her. That was the final straw. We printed the attorney's letter, placed it in an envelope, and slid it directly under Karen's door. It stated, in clear legal language, that all further harassment must cease, and that any attempt to force removal of our dog would result in immediate legal action. Karen didn't realize it yet, but the tides were beginning to turn, and she was about to find out that we weren't the pushovers she believed us to be. The official summons arrived 2 weeks later, delivered by a courier who looked almost apologetic handing it over. Karen and her loyal HOA board had filed a civil complaint alleging nuisance, danger to residents, and repeated violations of community standards. Our attorney almost laughed reading it. Half the claims were exaggerated, and the other half were complete fiction. Still, it meant we were now going to court, and the reality of that sank in quickly. The courtroom experience was surreal. Karen strutted in wearing a blazer that practically screamed, "I watch legal dramas." She carried a thick binder labeled Canine Incidents, as though she were presenting evidence in a federal case. Her supporters, mostly the same 3 neighbors who complained about everything from holiday decorations to grass height, sat behind her, nodding dramatically at everything she said. Our attorney, on the other hand, arrived calm, organized, and completely unbothered. He reminded us beforehand, facts win cases, not theatrics. And he was right. Karen took the stand first. She presented her documentation, which included things like handwritten notes claiming Sunny looked at her in a threatening manner, photos of Sunny simply standing in our yard, and audio recordings that captured nothing more than wind and faint neighborhood chatter. She spoke theatrically, insisting that Sunny was a menace to the moral fiber of the community. Even the judge raised an eyebrow at that one. When it was our turn, our attorney dismantled their case piece by piece. He pointed out inconsistencies, missing timestamps, forged witness statements, and violations of HOA procedure. He noted that the HOA board, under Karen's control, had skirted protocol by denying us access to evidence and by issuing fines without proper hearings. He even referenced state pet protection statutes that directly contradicted their demands. Then came the moment Karen didn't expect. Our neighbor, Mrs. Jensen, the sweetest elderly woman on the block, asked to testify on our behalf. She explained how Sunny often helped her feel safe when she walked past our home in the evenings. She even recalled an incident where Sunny gently guided her back to the sidewalk when she lost her balance. She finished by saying, "If that dog is dangerous, then I'm the Queen of England." The courtroom chuckled. Karen's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. By the end of the day, the judge issued a temporary injunction, preventing the HOA from enforcing any pet-related actions until the final ruling. Karen stormed out, slamming the door so hard it echoed through the courtroom. For the first time, we felt hope. The truth was finally on record, and Karen's manufactured authority was starting to crumble. The final hearing took place 3 weeks later, and by then the entire neighborhood seemed aware of what was happening. Some residents even approached us at the grocery store or while we were walking Sunny, offering support and apologizing for the HOA's behavior. It became clear that Karen's authority had never been as universally respected as she believed. Many people feared her, but few actually agreed with her. When the judge entered the courtroom that morning, the room fell silent. He reviewed the evidence one last time, flipping through Karen's binder with noticeable skepticism. Then he delivered the ruling in a firm, measured voice that left no room for argument. The court found that the HOA had violated its own bylaws by issuing fines without hearings. The weight restriction rule was no longer enforceable, having been invalidated by a later amendment. No credible evidence existed that Sunny posed any threat or nuisance. The HOA, led by Karen, engaged in targeted harassment against us. The judge dismissed all claims against us and then did something none of us expected. He ordered the HOA to reimburse all fines, legal costs, and additional damages for emotional distress. He also imposed mandatory oversight on future HOA procedures to ensure fairness and compliance with state law. Karen's jaw dropped. She sputtered, trying to object, but the judge silenced her with a raised hand. It was the first time we'd ever seen her speechless. After the ruling, a slow wave of relief washed over us. Neighbors congratulated us outside the courthouse. And Sunny, blissfully unaware, rolled in the grass near the parking lot. Karen, however, wasn't done making a scene. She cornered us near the exit, accusing us of destroying the community and threatening to resign from the HOA entirely. That turned out to be the best outcome of all. Within 2 days, she submitted her resignation. The board held a special meeting, voted to remove several of her overreaching policies, and apologized to residents who had been similarly targeted. For the first time since moving in, the neighborhood felt normal again, peaceful, friendly, and free of Karen's relentless policing. Life returned to the simple joys, evening walks with Sunny, waving to neighbors, and sitting on our patio without worrying about surprise fines. Sunny even received a Neighborhood Good Girl Award at the next community barbecue. In the end, we hadn't just defended our dog. We'd helped the entire community reclaim its voice. And Sunny? She just kept wagging her tail, blissfully unaware that she had become the hero of Maple Ridge Estates.